good morning, and welcome to part two of the animation Let's Animate. I decided on part one to do this because it has always sort of been my belief that maybe the most important thing that I think you can do, particularly for people, animation students, is to actually show them in real time yourself animating. When I taught a class, I taught classes in animation before. I always enjoyed the whole idea of doing a demonstration for my students. And oh, by the way, if you're hearing the babbling brook, that's my babbling brook YouTube stuff going on here. So I think maybe I'll just turn it way down. It's kind of actually kind of soothing, really. Um, Good way to think. Yeah, I should do that. YouTube has, out of all of the things that YouTube has that are distracting and fun to watch, there's also very peaceful things. If you go to the channels where there's just babbling brooks and burning fires and ocean waves coming in, I find that very relaxing and very helpful in your thinking. And even when I'm animating, I can honestly tell you that it is a really good thing to listen to. If you just got to have something in the background, that might be great. Anyways, as I was saying before, to actually demonstrate, excuse me, to actually demonstrate this animation process in real time, I think is a lot more valuable to young artists, or even professionals for that matter. When you see someone do something in real time, I think it has a greater, could have a stronger effect on you learning the process. Now you're just learning one person's way of doing something. That's true, and it's not like that's the only way you can do it. But when you see someone do it in real time, then it's a little easier to pick up the methods. And so that's why I'm doing this, really, too, because I see a lot of YouTube videos, and what I don't see them doing is doing what I'm doing. Now, maybe there are some that have done it. I guess, I'm sure, I hate to think I'm the only one. I'm sure someone else has done it, so I certainly am not going to patent this by any means. But I know that, even different artists showing their specific ways of doing something could all be helpful. Can you imagine um, you say someone like Andreas Deja doing this, or someone like Dan Haskett doing this, or someone like Tony Bancroft doing this? You'll see them do one drawing here and there, but you won't see them animate a scene. Or Glenn Keane, can you imagine that? Watching Glenn Keane literally animate a scene. It would take him time, so that's why, like, this is part two of this. So I mean, he's not gonna say be able to animate a scene in one sitting. So you'd be sitting there, like we did 30 minutes on the first one, and we probably will do 30 minutes on this one at least. So yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I know I've seen a lot of videos out there where you see someone do something over a long period of time. They do a time lapse, and then I guess the person can watch it and break it down. I personally, to just me and you, I can't imagine going through something like that. But I'm sure some people have learned fine. So, you do what works. If that works for you, great. But I think real time is better because all of the stuff that I can talk to you about while I'm doing this is, I think, much more valuable even to you than what I'm actually doing. And your drawing skills and stuff are going to be different. Everybody's going to draw differently. Everybody's going to approach the material differently. So, you know, it really comes down to how you're going to do something. That's really all it is. Now, I also, to let you know, I will take this scene not only through the animation process, but I'll also show you do the color and everything. So by the time I'm done with however many parts it takes to do this, you will see a completely finished scene in color with the background and everything. So I just want you to know that's where we're going with this. Because what I really wanted to inspire here, outside of training you and teaching you about animation, was I also wanted to inspire you to make your own films. Since the advent of the digital animation has been around now for obviously quite some time, for 10 plus years, I guess, by now. You know, we have something now this that we didn't have this before. When I started in this business, there was no digital animation, there was no computer animation. Everything was still being done on paper. Nobody was complaining about that, however. We all enjoy it, but the thing was is that if you wanted to make your own film, it was a major undertaking. But now with all these wonderful platforms, animation platforms, you can make your own film. And the reason why I stress making your own film is a couple of reasons why. Number one, you could make something that you could then sell. I mean, imagine making your own, say, pilot episode. And let's say Netflix, you put it up on YouTube or something, and Netflix contacts you and say, hey, we really like what you did here. Would you be interested in doing something for us, and we'll pay you for it? Well, imagine doing an episode. Let's say you did a 20-minute episode. Well, you just ask for the going rate. Say, well, look, it took me blah, blah, blah time to make it. This is what you pay. You pay a few $100,000 for an episode. Well, that's what I'd like. And, and they might be even willing to give you a contract and say, well, can you give us some more of this? And you say, well, sure. Well, then you could hire yourself a little crew and maybe do a 13 episode run. It'll probably take you a little while to do, but what's the difference between you and a company that hires, that puts together their own animation company? Netflix has done that. But I think being independent is good because then you make what you want to make. And then, these streaming companies can decide whether they want to buy it or not. Plus, you're not literally limited, are you? Because in a sense, if you're on YouTube, or let's say you create your own streaming platform, or you go to a platform where you could put your work up, who's to say that then you don't get, if you set up your own streaming, what if you set up your own streaming and maybe you made it real cheap? I don't know, a buck a month or something like that. Who's to say that you couldn't have your own streaming, or people could just buy your individual shows. I don't know. I'm just saying that I think we need to think outside the box. We've always thought about working for companies, but the reality is I think you see a lot more versatility in animation. Certainly I see it on YouTube. There's a lot of very creative folks out there doing some beautiful stuff. Sure, they're not getting paid for it, but imagine if they could. Certainly would encourage them to do more work. And it's not even a matter of getting paid a tremendous amount of money. Maybe it's just a matter of getting paid a reasonable amount of money. And that could be enough money for people to live on. So I'm just saying that opening up the animation world. I mean, we look and see what animators can do when they're not, run by corporations. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix, which I think is beautifully done. And what I notice about that is that it would seem to me, and I don't know this for a fact, but it looks like that Netflix gives artists an unlimited hand. They can do what they want. Now, I don't really know that, but it sure as heck looks like to me that Love, Death, and Robots is a heck of a lot better than anything else I see when it comes to animation. And a lot of these things are created by individuals. One of my favorites is Robert Valley, who I think is an amazing talent. And he's done Love, Death, and Robots, all 4 volumes. He's done at least one episode, and he always does these gorgeous things. So that's what I'm saying, is that we need to think outside the box. So it's just something to think about. So anyway, what I'm doing today is, like I said, is showing you how I do something. And, if that can help you, great. That's why I do it. All right, enough of me yammering. Let's get down to it, shall we? All right, so before, and I'm going to bring this back to its full size so I can work on it better. If you recall, before I started out with, the key drawings, and I had basically, I think I started with this drawing, and then I think I came over here. I said, okay, that we got to go from here to here. And so then I added some drawings in here. I added him looking, and then I added look over this way, which motivates him to start to go over here. And then I created a anticipation drawing, which is him scrunching down and then coming back up to a final position there, so that there's your action. So actually, these drawings now have set up the overall working of the scene. So really, literally, you literally have everything you need here. And everything we're going to add today will be smoothing these things out. So I go to the first drawing, I go to the second drawing. I say, well, how do I just want to have his eyes go straight over there? Do I want to have him blink to get there? Now, so like, for instance, I could do this. I could say, well, I can add a drawing in here. So let's say if I go over here and add a drawing, add after. Well, actually, I'm going to duplicate after because I want to keep the same head. So what I just did here is I had a 6-frame drawing here. I just duplicated that drawing. Now what I could do is I can, whoops, where's my, I'm on the right drawing. Let's see. Oh no, that's what I want to do. I'm doing the wrong thing here. I want to erase black. Okay. So, erase. And I'm gonna have him, whoops, should be on the sketchy. Alright. Close his eyes. There. So now, so you see what I did there. He closes his eyes before he opens them to look up. Alright. That's not bad. Let's see. I could do let's see here. Duplicate split halfway. So let's see. I'm going to duplicate the first drawing, but I'm going to split it. So what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to turn on my onion skin. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to split the difference between here and here. So what I'm going to do is have the eye start to close. All right. So he's still got his kind of frowning face there. So let's see. I think the eye would start to close here. So we're going to keep that look there. Yeah. Yeah, well, so he's closing his eyes. He's coming up. He's down here, and then he comes up there. Now I could do. He's going from here to here, so I'd say that the in between I'm going to make there would be splitting the difference. So let's say, so that I don't have to trace his head and everything again. We'll do this. We'll say. We'll duplicate split halfway again. So what that's going to do is that's going to copy, it's going to split this 6-frame difference, but he's going to open his eyes. Now, so what I'm going to do here, but that also changes the eyebrows. So I have to erase out the eyebrows here, and then I'm going to have his eyes start to open up, so we'll have a halfway half lid there. His eyes are going to open up to there, but also the eyebrows are up there, and then they're down here on this side. So in this way, we want to have these eyebrows come down, you see, so we're going to make an in between here. right? And then, see, we're going, it's in on the right side there, that eyebrow's going up. So we're doing the exact opposite on this eyebrow. It's going up. I forget who used to say this when I was at Disney. Maybe it was Ollie Johnston or Frank Thomas, or maybe it was Milt Call. I don't know who said it, but it was written down. Don't do everything all at the same time. Don't move everything at the same time. And that's a great piece of advice because what that does is that reminds you that you want variation in your action. Yeah, see. All right, so now let's play that. Hmm. Now we could make the hold on the look longer. So like that first look, maybe we can bring this up, make this 6 frames again. And then let's see, that's 3, 3, 3. Let's see, maybe what we do here is we make these on 2s, the movement. It's a little faster. And then he's holding that look. And he's going to look that way. So let's see how that looks. Yeah, see, that looks a little more natural. Now, because I got him holding when he looks forward, maybe we want to make that. Let's see. So we're getting to this look here. That's being held 10 frames. Maybe what we might do here. Well, we could. Well, let's see. We could split this halfway. So let's say we split this halfway. So we got 5 frames on this side, 5 frames on that side. Let's say we add a drawing in the middle. We'll say add 5 frames. So there's nothing here. Okay, so there's a 5 frame blank in here. Now in this 5 frame blank, I could what? Well, I could close his eyes halfway. Now, actually, maybe what might be good here is, yeah, okay, here's a thought. Let me drop the size of this image down. So let's say we take this entire image, we copy it, and we paste it in on top of this new drawing. And we'll bring this back up again. And so here we then maybe do maybe just a half blink here. Maybe his eyes don't go all the way down. You know, maybe it's just a subtle kind of half blink. And you know, I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. Let me go back to the beginning. Yeah, you see a little half blink there, but I don't think that's very effective. Oh, for one thing, it sticks. So there's the half blink there. I think if we were going to do this, it would have to be maybe 3 frames, maybe. We'll make it 3 frames. Let's see what that looks like. It's almost an interruption that you don't really need, isn't it? Let's see. So we're here and we're there. See, well, you know, here's the thing. It's like I try to do stuff for a reason. You know, some things don't really work. You know, it's like, but this is the reason why you can play the pencil test and you can look at it, because if it looks weird, then you do something with it. So here, Yeah, I'm trying to find to justify this. Yeah, it's kind of almost a tick, isn't it? It almost kind of doesn't even give us anything. Well, let's see. So if I'm there, hmm. So am I making a mountain out of a molehill here? Well, let's see. What I could do here is just get rid of this drawing. So let's say I delete it. And I've got two drawings that are the same here, so I'll just delete one of them. Or yeah, okay, I'll delete one of them, and then I'll go back to making this 10 frames, so that it's a hold, or 8 frames. Maybe that's too long. I don't know. Let's see. Go back. Well, see, this is what I mean. You make changes as you think you need to make them. So maybe that look forward is fine. Maybe we don't need to hold on it too much. Maybe that 8 frames is good. So this is 8 frames in here, and then he looks that way. Maybe that's a deliberate look to that side, going from here to here. So, all right. So let's see. I'll then. So actually, we can anticipate the eye look, but we can also change everything else. So let's do this. We'll add add after, but we'll duplicate after. But I don't think we need that to be 8 frames. We'll make this. I'll make this 4 frames in here. It's duplication. Turn on our onion skin, and maybe we'll bridge that gap a little bit here. So what I'm going to do here is on this middle drawing, I'm going to close his eyes on the middle drawing on both frames. But okay. But the eyebrow goes up, so I'm going to have his eyebrow start to go up on this middle frame. So that way you see I'm moving things at different rates. I'm not moving the eyes the same way. I'm changing stuff. And then I start to maybe bring the little crease over his eye. And the same thing with the mouth. I can do an in-between on the mouth as it comes up. All right, let's try that, and let's see what that looks like. Oh yeah, okay. So you see, there's a slight. You're trying to get your character to look like he's thinking. See, the key to making things come to life is you're trying to get the character to look like he's thinking. So we spent a lot of time now. Back in the day, when we animated on paper. The real trick, you're flipping. You're constantly looking at what you've done. How does it work? The only thing that we didn't always have, well, we did with the video animation playback system, which was pretty much instant. Not as instant as this, is that we could see it in real time. But think of the animators like the old Warner Brothers guys or the old Disney guys. Well, the old Disney guys, they could at least send their animation to the camera department. It could be shot, and then within an hour or so, they could see it. And they would bring the film to them to their rooms. Every animator had his own moviola. He could put a loop of his scene on there and play it over and over and see it. That was about the best you could get. And the Disney was at the top of the food chain on that. A lot of other studios didn't have that luxury. I trained under Ben Washam, and Ben Washam told us a story about how he had never seen a pencil test. He mentioned the one time he ever saw one, which we were all flabbergasted at the notion that these Warner Brothers animators were doing these awesome Bugs Bunny cartoons, and they never saw any pencil tests until the thing was finished. They never saw it until it was in color and on the screen. I thought, wow, how the heck could they possibly do that? Well, they all talked about flipping. They were always flipping the drawings, and then they also understood timing. Timing was a big thing. You timed out your exposure sheet and you knew how many frames that it was going to take for you to do something. So you just kept, you became an expert at that. And so that's why the guys like Chuck Jones and Friz Freeling and that's why they were so good at that sort of stuff, because they knew what 24 frames looked like. They had it down. And the best animators were the same way. Even at Disney, I think Milt Kahl, obviously, they understood what 24 frames was like, or what it looked like. And a lot of the old animators talk about it that way. That's how they did. But with today, we've got our video systems here. We've got our computer systems. You can see it, which actually in some ways helps you to have a better sense of it. But it is good to know timing, and I learned it. Pretty much, I learned it. It was still kind of an elusive thing for me. Okay, so he's thinking there, and he turns and he goes, all right. Now, I'd say maybe we could enhance, and like once he starts to look off to the side, maybe we need to enhance that look. You know what I mean? Here's what I mean. So he gets over to here, right? But then the next thing is he starts to react. Well, perhaps maybe we should enhance this look, huh? So what if we were to do this? Let's say we were to duplicate after. So we're going to give ourselves another frame here. And you look in the timeline, you see me jump over here. So this frame was 10 frames, and we're adding another 10 frame hold here. But what if we start to change this? Because now he's going to end up over here, right? Happy. Well, what if we change this expression here? So let's say maybe maybe there's some hope in his face here. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's say maybe he's looking like this, right? But maybe his eyes start to go up. And instead of being angry, maybe the look is a little more hopeful. Maybe he starts to kind of come out of this angry kind of expression, and maybe his mouth starts to slowly open. Right? Because I think if we open his mouth, we need to do a slight change on the jaw. Because remember, if the character's opening his mouth a little bit, that should have an effect on the jawline. So that, the jawline should drop just a little bit. Right? All right, let's go back and look at that. And even that hold is maybe not long enough. Or maybe we enhance it even more. Let's see. Well, okay, what if we do this then? What if we duplicate after on that? And, let's then let's say open his mouth even more. Let's really. Which means we really have to. So now we got, say, something like this. But then we've really got to make sure we make the jaw adjust to that. So maybe I might be exaggerating this a little bit too much, but I think for his mouth to be open that much, it's got to be probably something like this. See, how does that look? Yeah, that looks about right. And then here, on the eyebrows, you see, we want to get that up more like that. See, because what we're really trying to do here, and maybe even make the tops of his eyes, huh? We could even accent that as well. Maybe his eyes look like they get more oval shaped here, right? See, I'm thinking, what I'm doing now is I'm thinking about the emotion of the character. He's seen something, a change somewhere, and then he's changing as a result of it. See? Let me put this in a smaller box so you get the whole image. All right, there we go. Yeah, see, I'm showing him. You want to make your character look like he's thinking. Now, you say, well, Leonard, that's easy for you to say because you know how to do this. So how do I know where to move? This is what we used to do. Is we used to act things out in front of a mirror. You know, animators back in the day, and I don't think it should be any different now, would have a mirror in their studio or in their room, and they would act things out. Or even sometimes you might have someone act it out for you, or you might film yourself acting, pretending to be the character. I know computer animation artists do this, and it's a good idea because sometimes you just can't imagine what it is. You need to kind of see something, and nobody's going to be better at acting your character out than you. You'll find that as you draw, if you do this, you start to kind of feel what the character is supposed to be doing. You also start to understand the stages in which you do it. It starts to make sense to you. Oh, he's got to open his eyes a little more here and there, Now, here's the thing. If you act something out, and I hope you get this, you're acting, it's not a formula. Okay? It's not a formula. Now, yeah, there's the principles of animation, squash and stretch, anticipation. We know about that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I'm talking about acting. If you see a movie and you see an actor do something, where's that coming from? That's coming from inside the person. They feel something, right? And then they're trying to express that. Now, as an animator, you have the opportunity to do this in a way that an actor. Well, I mean, the actors do the same thing. I think you see, whoever it is, Meryl Streep, George Clooney, Tom Cruise, whoever. Yeah, real people. Okay, I bring them in. It's the same difference. I mean, cartoon characters, our acting tends to be more exaggerated. Yes, but I can honestly tell you that actually sometimes the most powerful messages in acting can be very subtle. I mean, think of Chuck Jones, in the One Froggy Evening. There's that scene where the first time the guy sees the frog acting, and there's a shot where he's looking at the frog, and then he looks up at camera. He breaks the fourth wall. It's just a simple look. That's a funny scene. And all it is it's just his eyes moving. So it isn't about moving a whole lot. It's about moving the right way. It's about doing the right action. It's about capturing the action. That's what you're trying to do. It's not about, how fancy can I move? I got to have all this crazy action. No. You're trying to communicate an idea. What is the character feeling? So the only way you can do that is you've got to act. Think about what you want the character to do. Okay. I always said that, it's interesting that when I look at Disney animation, I think, I've always felt, and I still feel this way, Disney animation is brilliant. Okay. It's the best, top of the food chain. Pixar is right there with it. And we all imitate that stuff. But what ends up happening is we end up just imitating stuff. And I can honestly tell you, even within the studio, as working in the studios, we imitate other animators because obviously we're animating the same characters, and we're trying to make sure. Well, I want my animation to look like what Tony Bancroft did, or what Andreas did, or whoever. Some animators are pretty hard to imitate, like Eric Goldberg, who's so freaking good that, well, the rest of us are human. All right. Well, so. But the point is that, yeah, within a studio system, you are trying to imitate what other people do because you want the characters to be consistent. But that doesn't mean that you don't act. How would you communicate real disappointment in a character? How would you communicate real despair, real heartbreak? How would you communicate true elation? It doesn't need to be formulaic. There's the ways of doing something, yeah, that work. But stop and think about who the character is. What makes that character different from any other character? That's what you're looking for, is the uniqueness of that character. How would that character do it? That's what you're trying to capture. All right. Well, as I said, I knew this was going to be long. And we're already up over 35 minutes here, so I want to stop this now. And there'll be a part 3. This is fun. I'm having a great time. I hope you all are too. Stay tuned for part 3. Love you guys. Have a beautiful weekend. It's Saturday right now, and I'll see you on the next one. My guess is that if it's not sometime this week, in the middle of the week for part 3, it'll probably be by the end of the week. Looks like I'm doing most of my fun sketching stuff in the middle of the week, and then on the weekends, like today, I will be animating. So that's probably how it'll go, but we'll see. All right. Anyway, just stay tuned and, keep watching, and subscribe to my channel if you like to. Don't feel obligated, but I appreciate it if you do. And give me a like if you feel like it. Don't feel obligated. Everybody asks us to do subscribe and like. Yeah, well, people should subscribe and like if they want to, not because they're being forced to. And nobody's going to force you to do anything anyway. All right, have a beautiful day, folks. Thank God for your talent. Thank God for what you have. Give him praise and glory. He loves you, and he's done a lot for us. I know I say this every time, but it bears repeating. Remember, Jesus is Lord, and thank him. And I thank you, Father, for the talent I have. Have a good day, folks. Have a good weekend. See you next time.